collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
Coming up on this week's programme, in the context of Italian Design Day, we discuss the tangible and intangible qualities of Italian design and the energy of design for people and the environment.
Right now we are studying some of the most sustainable practices for jewellery.
And Kate Clerides tells us about her book entitled Building Bridges in a Polarised World and Divided Cyprus, which will be launched next week.
We need to really listen to the other and put ourselves in the other person's shoes. Most of the time we are caught in our own narratives about a situation, a political situation or whatever, even a personal situation, and we are not able to put ourselves in the other person's shoes and really listen to them.
Earlier this week, the Embassy of Italy in Nicosia organised Italian Design Day. I think it's the 7th edition of this initiative, and this year the theme is Enlightening Quality, the Energy of Design for People and Environment. One of the keynote speakers joins me on this week's programme. She is Professor Alba Capellieri, Professor at the Milan Polytechnic Faculty of Design, and she was speaking about tangible and intangible qualities of Italian design. Alba, thanks for joining me. Maybe we should start with the intangible qualities of design, because the tangible ones are probably rather obvious to most of us, but I don't know about the intangible ones.
Yes, so thank you so much. I'm very proud and honored to be in Cyprus and in Nicosia here for the Italian Design Day. I started as an ambassador for the Italian design from the very first edition, and I think it's a really important venue for the Italian design all over the world, supported and sponsored by the Ministry for Foreign Affairs. So, to this here, the topic will be related to quality. And you were mentioning that tangible qualities are pretty obvious. Let me say that sometimes, especially in the Italian design products, they might not be so obvious, because if you refer to materials or if you refer to precious materials, they are obvious. But one of the main characteristics of the Italian design is based on the ability, we call it cross-fertilization, the ability to mix different contexts, to bring inspiration, but also materials and technologies from a discipline and to move and transfer into another discipline. And this is the reason why Italian design is really famous worldwide. So, coming back to your intangible qualities, which are my favorite, to be honest with you, I think that Italian design is very valuable, especially from the intangible perspective. And for intangible qualities, I mean qualities that are not relevant on an economic point of view, but they bring something that is an intangible value. Think, for example, at creativity. Think, for example, at problem solving. But think also, for example, at functionality. Think at the ability to change behaviors. One of my favorite intangible quality of the Italian design is exactly in the ability to change behaviors. If we go back, for example, to the 70s, and we analyze some of the sofas, for example, just for example, to some of the most famous Italian designers like Antonio Citterio, he anticipated a new way of living, a new way of behaving, and he proposed larger than usual sofas, exactly anticipating the myth of watching TV, seated in a very comfortable way. But also, Italian designers, I think they are pretty unique for creativity, for innovation, which is another very important and valuable intangible quality, and also for craftsmanship, that is, on the other side, one of the tangible qualities.
And let me ask you about your work, because you're very much associated, I believe, with jewellery, and that has changed so much over the centuries. I know you've studied different types of jewellery from the past, and I'm sure you're creating pieces possibly for the future. So tell us a little bit about your connection with jewellery, and I think I read somewhere that people are sometimes using 3D printing now for that.
Yes, you are very well informed, brava. Yes, actually I got my degree in architecture, but I'm not a practicing architect. Then I moved to the States studying some American architects, and then I moved to Milan at the Polytechnic of Milan, which is one of the most important schools in the world for design. So I interpreted the design history and the design perspective related to jewelry. We were at the end of the 90s, and Italy at the time was the first producer and manufacturers in the world about jewelry. But that was very strange and unusual. There were no jewelry designers coming from the design methodology and schools. So I started at Politecnico di Milano, the very first university class in Milan dedicated to jewelry design, mixing the artistic aspects of jewelry with the design methodologies, especially in terms of innovation for materials and for technology. So you were mentioning the 3D printing, which is one of the most well-known digital technologies. And at Politecnico, we anticipate the future exactly studying new technologies and new materials to be applied also for jewelry. And then in 2014, I was the founder and also the director of the Museum of Jewelry in Vicenza, which is one of the jewelry capitals in Italy. And that was the very first museum entirely dedicated to jewelry in Italy. And since we did not have a collection and we did not have the possibility to buy important pieces, the idea of basing the museum on the different contexts of jewelry. So we started with jewelry as a symbol, jewelry as magic, jewelry as beauty, and then the intersections with the arts, jewelry as art, jewelry as fashion, jewelry as design, and then the icons with the big masterpieces from the past, and then the future, how jewelry will be in the future. And the idea was to focus on curators. I truly believe in curation. I truly believe that today the storytelling is crucial for every brand in interpreting their heritage and legacy in a contemporary way. So the storytelling provided by curators was very strong at the museum, and I selected 9 curators for each room, and they had the honor and also the responsibility for the loans of the pieces. And every 2 years, they were supposed to change curators, so different jewelry, different narratives, different perspectives. It has been for me a very important professional experience, and right now I'm trying to do the same in Milan, which of course is one of the world capitals both for design and for fashion. So I am a designer with a specialization on jewelry, and I think that my peculiarity is to consider jewelry not just in terms of the preciousness of the materials or of the craftsmanship of manufacturing, but as one of the most beautiful objects that accompany our daily life and can change with our mood, with our desires. I think that jewelry today is a very, very rich and also a very complex field.
Of course, some people use jewellery as an investment, but that brings me to asking you about the environment. We said at the beginning that this year's edition of Italian Design Day is the energy of design for people and environment. And I'm presuming that mining precious stones, again, must be a finite thing, and whether or not you feel that the way jewellery is moving perhaps away from that. I mean, we've seen costume jewellery come into its own over the last 20 years or so. It doesn't have to be a diamond, an emerald or a sapphire anymore, and if it's 3D printed, I have no idea what that jewellery looks like. So is that a way forward for maintaining all the things you've been speaking about and also taking care of the sustainability of our environment?
Absolutely. I think that sustainability is a very important goal, but should also be a purpose today in the jewelry field and in many other fields. But jewelry has always worked with precious metals. And the majority of the sustainability attitude and politics by, for example, the fashion industry is based on recycling. And recycling has always been a practice of jewelry because no one wants to throw away precious metals. And also I had the chance to visit the diamond mines in Botswana by the De Beers Group. And I can assure you that they are really wonderful in terms of process and in terms of reaching a more sustainable approach to precious materials. On the other hand, digital technology, starting from 3D printing, they use plastic. And also, costume jewelry, for example, they use 9-carat gold. And when you throw away your costume jewelry, you are throwing away a minimal percentage also of gold. So right now we are studying some of the most sustainable practices for jewelry. But I'm not sure that precious jewelry can be more sustainable or less sustainable than fashion jewelry. The difference is they are well done, well designed, well manufactured or not. So right now for me, sustainability to jewelry is like sustainability for design. If we do things in the good way, they will last, let's say, forever or for a very long time. It can be applied to fashion, it can be applied to furniture, it can be applied to jewelry as well. So for me, the most important thing is that the commitment for sure of the jewelry industry towards more sustainable practices, but also the clients and consumers' attitude to buy less and in a better way, better product.
And look after it, of course. That is Professor Alba Capellieri, Professor at the Milan Polytechnic Faculty of Design, who was one of the keynote speakers at that Italian Design Day event held earlier this week in Nicosia.
Listen online to the Cyprus News Digest on YouTube or at cyprusmail.libsyn.com. The latest program is uploaded every Friday, and if you missed one, you can catch up there.
In collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
The biggest achievement of Crime Stoppers has been the ability of the public to be able to give information about crime anonymously.
There's no way I could have kept prostituting without the drugs. There's no way I could have had my body used like a public toilet, because that's actually what prostitution is.
And then the fourth series I started 3 days after I'd won the Oscar, so the whole of the Monarch of the Glen experience was all interplatted with the Gosford Park Oscar experience.
I was working with Ronnie James Dio, and David was going to reform Whitesnake in 2003.
Cyprus was chosen because Cyprus is a stable, peaceful and secure place.
We have to really look closely. What are we doing with children? What are we doing with adolescents? And what are we doing with adults that can help them move into a more literate situation?
The ones that I'm proudest of are the ones that were true discoveries, where we found something we didn't know existed.
Next Friday, there's a book launch and presentation of a book written by Kate Clerides, well known to people here in Cyprus. She is, of course, the daughter of the late Blafkos Clerides, president of Cyprus for many years, and she works tirelessly for ending the division of our island. The book is called Building Bridges in a Polarised World and Divided Cyprus, and she joins us now. Kate, thanks very much indeed. How long has it taken you to write this book? Because it's such a huge topic.
It is a huge topic, and I had a lot of reservations about writing it because, as you say, it's a huge topic, and I felt overawed by it. But at the same time, I had spent so many years working in conflict resolution groups in Cyprus, by communal groups, working with the other community, and I felt that I learned so much through that, and I wanted to share it. So the starting point was really my work in Cyprus, what we learned from those bi-communal groups, why we weren't successful in, let's say, getting our message of reconciliation out to the wider society. So the starting point for the book was actually my experiences in Cyprus. But then I felt I wanted, through my reading, to take it beyond that.
Okay, so how did you take it beyond that? Because this is something, as you say, you've been working on for years. A lot of other people have as well. Do you think anything has changed?
What I experienced in 2016 when I was in the United States, it was a time of Trump's first election when he was standing against Hillary Clinton, I was witness to this huge polarization which has taken place in the United States, and that was another, if you like, motivation for my writing this book. So much work has been done, both in the United States and in many European countries, as to how we can sort of get to convergence instead of always being in conflict with one another. And the more I read, the more I found. So really the book is a compilation of my thoughts, what I've read, what I learned by following many webinars online during the COVID period, which is the time when I started writing it. And also, I use a lot of, I read very widely international authors, and I find that many times in good fiction, you find a lot of depictions of real life and what motivates people to do what they do. So it's kind of, it's a strange book, I think. It's quite personal, but at the same time it's also quite political.
And have you come up with an idea about how these bridges could be built?
The main thing, Rosie, from my personal experience and from what I've read, is we need to really listen to the other and put ourselves in the other person's shoes. Most of the time we are caught in our own narratives about a situation, a political situation or whatever, even a personal situation, and we are not able to put ourselves in the other person's shoes and really listen to them. We think when we're having a discussion, we're not having a dialogue, we're just having a discussion or a debate. We need to really listen. But of course, all of the theory bumps up against political reality and the fact that many times, people are acting out of self-interest, countries are acting out of self-interest, not putting, the benefit of the whole above individual benefits or individual countries' benefits. So the theory is one thing, the political reality and how you steer yourself through those political realities is another thing. And I'm very much aware of that, having been involved in active politics, how difficult it is to keep this balance between doing the right thing for the largest number of people. I'm a big believer in that. The philosophy of doing the best for the largest number of people.
And that's something that in our polarised world is not very common, isn't it? And with social media, it seems to have got worse.
It's worse, and it's very difficult now because you don't know what is actually true, what is the real narrative. I mean, even because there are many made-up narratives as well which are out there, so you have to steer your way through all that. And I certainly don't have the answers. I just try and pose the questions, and hopefully the book makes people think a little bit about what's going on around them and how they can improve the way they deal personally with conflict. It certainly doesn't have all the answers. It has a lot of questions, not many answers, I think. And some people may think it's, just a bit of pie in the sky, Pollyanna, but there are positive things going on in small ways, but even in big ways. I mean, I was very happy to hear a couple of nights ago on the news that after 15 years, they've come out with some kind of agreement on how to deal with environmental issues concerning the sea. Now, that's fantastic, because if we don't learn how to deal with these issues, major issues like, the COVID crisis or the environmental crisis or the immigration crisis collectively and in a peaceful way, we're not really going to survive very much longer on this planet, I don't think.
And those big issues that are common to both sides can, I'm sure, be used to bring the sides together. You mentioned the environment. I mean, there have been cultural moves for many, many years, things like the bicommunal choir and so on. But on a bigger picture, things like the environment, the air quality and so on, can presumably be harnessed to try and bridge the gaps that we have.
That's very true, and we're planning a number of organizations, including the Glasgow Clerides Institute, the Cyprus Peace and Dialogue Centre, in cooperation with the European Water Mining Project. We're having a satellite meeting in October, which will be about water management in the whole of Cyprus, and in which there will be participants from both communities and hopefully maybe even from Greece and Turkey, so that we can look at some of these issues which concern us all holistically and realize, that we are definitely connected on this small island. We're definitely connected, but even on this small planet, we are all connected. And if we don't act together on major issues, I don't believe we're going to have much of a future.
The other big issue, of course, is energy, and that surely offers a great deal of hope, but we seem once again to be thinking it's ours, we don't want them to have any.
Yes, well, this is one of the points I raise in the book. I say that we need to use the energy resources around the island to build up a good relationship with Turkey, and I don't believe it has to happen after a solution. I believe that the energy resources could be a catalyst for a solution, because in my view, one of the things that Turkey wants is to be an energy hub for the region, and we could contribute to that, because my philosophy is, if you make your enemy your friend, they're no longer your enemy. So that's the best approach, not to try and win in a war. I mean, we can see the disastrous consequences of war in Ukraine at the moment. Some people may feel it's a war that had to be fought. I don't believe that. There should have been a negotiated settlement on that issue, not a war which has totally destroyed Ukraine, caused instability in Europe, and it's benefiting no one except those people who are selling arms.
Yeah, they seem to be behind an awful lot of the world's problems, don't they? So what would be your message, Kate, to people? Because we're going to hope that they will join you next Friday at the Home for Cooperation. I see that you've got Niyazi Kuzulurek as the moderator. He's our MEP. He is a Turkish Cypriot. He's been working for years to bringing the sides together. And you've got several other speakers from both sides of the divide. So how do you see the whole event playing out next Friday?
Well, I have to thank Niyazi because it's his publishing house that's publishing the book. And when I started writing it, I sent him the early text and he liked it and he encouraged me to write it. So I'm very indebted to him. Without it, Niyazi, I wouldn't have written the book. My message is we always need to use diplomacy as a starting point and as an ending point. And diplomacy needs to be enriched. It's not enough just to go there and think that you're going to do the best for your side. You have to go there and sit around the table and try and see the other side's point of view. Why are they doing what they're doing? Why are they demanding what they're demanding? And see how each side can give something that the other side needs, a really basic need, not just face-saving need, to work through the problem. My point of view is if you want to solve a problem, you can solve a problem. I don't believe that it can't be done with goodwill. And real putting self-interest aside, because so often even political leaders' self-interest comes in the way, so they don't do what's good for their country or what's good for the majority of the people. They just do what's good for them.
And the biggest thing, I suppose, is the willingness to compromise, because for so many years we have played the if it's good for me, then it's bad for the others, and vice versa. Whereas in actual fact, with a little bit of forethought, compromise could bring us to a solution.
That's very, very true. Unfortunately, we're all trapped in our, as I said, our historical narratives, which bias us. We're also, many people are suffering from trauma. I don't want to downplay that. Of course, it's very hard. We've made a lot of mistakes on both sides. But at the same time, if we don't try and work through our traumas and historical baggage and move forward, we're just going to be stuck in this downward slide that my father talked about when he said we should vote yes for the Annan plan because it wasn't a perfect plan, but it was a lot better than the alternative, which was a big hole which we're sliding into, and we don't know where we're going to end up. Unfortunately, I think he was right. We may be given a few more chances to solve the Cyprus problem. And we need to do it. We need to have the courage to do it.
Is the problem that we want a perfect solution? You mentioned the Annan plan, and at least it would have been a start.
Exactly. I think, maybe it's an islanders' trade. We're not very good about the idea of looking forward to change. We prefer things to stay as they are, even if they're not ideal. And I think, quite frankly, at least on our side, I can't talk so much about the Turkish Cypriot. At least from the Greek Cypriot point of view, things seem tolerable as they are. So why should we risk something else? This is the general feeling, and I don't see any motivation, and there's no dynamic for a solution on the Greek Cypriot side.
I guess it boils down to the fact that we're probably all a little bit frightened of the unknown, even though the known is obviously not getting us very far very fast. Kate, I know you're in a hurry, but let's just remind people that they can join you and those other speakers at the Home for Cooperation in the buffer zone in Nicosia next Friday, 17th of March at 6:30 for the launch of your book, Building Bridges in a Polarised World and Divided Cyprus. Many thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Rosie.
Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.